Towards the middle of the Victorian period, really from the 1860s onwards, there came about the aesthetic movement, which believed first and foremost in the mantra art for art's sake. The idea being that beauty, the beautiful and the sublime, is the key thing, the highest and primary purpose of art, rather than moralistic or political intent. Art and beauty, they believed, should be everywhere, involved in everything, and integrated into daily life, and shouldn't be restricted to the high arts like painting or poetry, but that the artist should extend into things like architecture and the decorative arts, those art forms that really shape our environments and indeed our homes. This was one of the central tenets of the aesthetic movement. It was also the stated intention of William Morris and his circle of artists that surrounded him at the time, which included people like Edward Burne-Jones, Gabriel Rossetti, Philip Webb and Ford Madox Brown. They all came together to set up the now famous decorative arts firm Morris & Company, and they had the aim of reviving traditional craftsmanship by rejecting industrial mass production and instead promoting handmade artistry. Over the years, the firm manufactured all sorts of things, all handmade, including furniture, metal and glasswares, wallpapers, embroideries, jewellery, carpets and tapestries. Of course, they came to be most famous for their wallpaper designs, where Morris displayed a particular genius. But initial success was almost entirely down to their stained glass windows, which was aided by the great wave of church building that was going on in this period, and also because Morris had many contacts among the leading Victorian architects. The earliest of the firm's stained glass commissions were for churches built by the Gothic Revival architect George Frederick Bodley, and these early projects were essentially a collaborative effort by almost all of Morris's partners. It was only later, toward the 1870s, that Edward Burne-Jones, who was born in Birmingham in 1833, and the last and probably the most significant Pre-Raphaelite painter, it was only later that he emerged as the sole designer of stained glass windows for the Morris Company. This was in part, I think, due to his feelings of loyalty towards Morris, but it was also definitely because he was the most skilled, the most committed and productive in the design of stained glass windows, who more than anyone believed in the true potential of what stained glass could be, developing a unique and recognizable and distinctive style, colourful, luminous, dynamic, full of energy and fluency, that was very commercially successful at the time. Now, having set up all of that background, I think it would be a good idea to go and see a few examples of Edward Burne-Jones's stained glass windows, and I picked out three in particular, three of his best, that I think really trace and illustrate his journey as a designer of stained glass windows. And so for the first, we have to go and catch a train to Cambridge. This is the chapel of Jesus College at the University of Cambridge, originally a Norman church dedicated to St. Mary, founded in 1157 to serve a Benedictine convent. Between 1867 and 1878, the Morris Company created a remarkable series of windows for the chapel, including several designed by Burne-Jones. In the south transept, 4 windows portray the evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. each accompanied by scenes from their Gospels. And then, in the great south window, Burne-Jones offers a complete vision of the church in heaven and on earth. Above, the ordered hierarchies of the angels. Below them, St. Radegund, St. Cecilia, and other women saints. And then, at the bottom, the four doctors of the church, as well as Bishop Alcock, the founder of Jesus College in 1496. Already in these earlier examples of his stained glass work, you can see the figures have that unmistakable Burne-Jones elegance, elongated, introspective, almost weightless and spiritual. But compared to his later work, they are simpler, flatter, and more formal, and more firmly rooted in medieval precedent. The colours are rich but restrained, the compositions devotional rather than dramatic. To see an example of Burne-Jones breaking free of that restraint, attempting something altogether more ambitious, I returned to London and then made my way across to Sloane Square in Chelsea. This is Holy Trinity Church, constructed in 1890 by the architect John Dando Stedding, an influential figure in the arts and crafts movement. And this here is what I came to see in particular. At the front of the church, the east window, the largest window ever made by Morris and Company. It is enormous, a vast sea of pale green glass, composed of 48 panels, with each panel depicting a saint. These include the apostles, early church fathers, English and Celtic saints, and holy figures drawn from across the centuries. But to really see Burne-Jones at his best, his pinnacle as a designer of stained glass, we need to visit the city of his birth, Birmingham. This is St. Philip's Cathedral, the church in which Burne-Jones was baptised, having grown up just round the corner on Bennett's Hill. Here Burne-Jones designed 4 windows, the Ascension in 1885, right at the east end above the chancel, the Nativity and the Crucifixion in 1887, facing each other in the northeast and southeast, and finally, in 1897, the Last Judgement in the west window. The Last Judgement window is widely regarded as Burne-Jones's finest work in stained glass. It shows Jesus Christ draped in white, wearing a crown of thorns blessing the world below. The angels dressed in red crowd around him. This red colour is for me the most striking thing, luminous saturated crimson, making the whole upper half seem as if it has been soaked in blood. There in the middle is the Archangel Michael, blowing the last trumpet, signalling the end of history and the beginning of judgment. Below his feet, cities and buildings falling in ruins, and below again, the dead standing upon their graves. The whole picture is quite simply extraordinary. The richness and density of the colour, the liquid fluency of the line, the force of the symbolism, and the clarity of the storytelling. In this window, Burne-Jones pushes his stained glass designs to a new level of ambition, proving that glass, despite all its limitations and constraints, can be as monumental, dramatic, and psychologically charged as painting.